On today's show, it's only a 1.8% chance, but what if Cooper Flagg comes to the Mavericks? I'll tell you, it changes everything. Today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm going to get a city like that. Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't leave me alone.
Your team every day.
Gotta be born with the dog blood.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member, covered the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years. Thanks for being an everydayer, making Locked On Mavs your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Check out FanDuel.com. Today's episode, what if the Mavs get the number one pick? What if that 1.8% chance plays out somehow and they get the pick? I think the Hawks had similar odds last year and got the number one pick. Now, it was a very different draft, but what happens? What would Cooper Flagg bring to Dallas? We'll talk about that. But let's start here. Cooper Flagg and the number one pick may be the Mavs' only path out of this window they're stuck in. And maybe the only path out of the window the Mavs are stuck in at all is winning the lottery. Because you look at where the Mavs are right now. And I want to take a second before we get into Cooper Flagg himself. Let's talk about where the Mavs are, because then bringing in Cooper Flagg, it explains why it changes so much for them. And obviously getting the number one pick and with a surefire number one like this changes everything so much. But the Mavs right now, 1.8% chance, which there's only a couple teams with worse odds. The Bulls at 1.7, the Hawks and the Spurs at 0.8, 0.7. And then you've got the top three teams. They only have a 14% chance. The Jazz, the Wizards, and the Hornets were terrible all season and only have a 14% chance at this number one pick. The difference between 1.8% and 14%, it seems like a lot, but it's not like they have a 50% chance, right? It's not like it's 50-50 that the Jazz get the number one pick. It's 14. The difference between 14 and 1.8 is not that. I mean, what is that? That's only 12 percentage points ish. That's kind of wild the way that this lottery works out. And even like the Sixers, year from hell, terrible. They have 10.5%, like a 9 percentage point difference than the Mavericks. Kind of crazy to me. But anyway, the Suns only have like a 2 percentage point difference. They're giving their pick to the Rockets, but the Suns being as bad as they were, missing the play-in and everything, only have a 2 percentage points higher. And that's probably where the Mavericks would have ended up if they would have tanked and done all that, which, I thought they should have at the time, but that's for more reasons than just improving your lottery odds. The Mavs are stuck in this short window right now. You've got Anthony Davis and hopefully Kyrie. Let's assume that Nico is right and that Kyrie's going to sign this 3-year deal, line his deal up with Anthony Davis. They both have 3 years left with the Mavericks. It's going to be 2020, year 2026, 2027, and 2028. In that first year, this upcoming year, Anthony Davis is going to end that year at 33. Kyrie's going to end it at 34 years old, and he's going to be coming back from the injury. Year after that, 34 for AD, 35 for Kyrie. The end of the last year of this 3-year window, AD's going to be 35, Kyrie's going to be 36. And you start to look around and be like, man, they're going to bet on a 35-year-old AD and a 36-year-old Kyrie. How many centers are still at like an all-star, all-NBA level at 35? Kyrie, a small guard, being 36 years old. I started to look through, all right, even 34 to 36. Let's look through how many guards have made a big impact. Here's some guards that actually played in the finals at 34, 36 and played big roles. Chris Paul was 35 when he played point guard for the Suns. And so I don't think it's impossible to think that Kyrie could be 35, 36 and still having a big impact on winning. Think about Chris Paul with the Suns that year that they went to the finals. That he made a huge impact on them. Now there's other things. John Stockton, going all the way back to the Stockton-Malone Jazz. John Stockton was 34 and 35 years old the 2 years that the Jazz made the finals. I don't know that I realized how old he was at the time of going to those finals. Derek Fisher in the 2010 Lakers was 35 years old, playing a ton of minutes, like 32 minutes for that Lakers team, starting next to Kobe Bryant. And Kyle Lowry was 36 years old for Miami. He played 26 minutes. He wasn't starting, but he played a big role. 26 minutes a game in the playoffs on a finals team. He was 36 years old. So it's not impossible for Kyrie and AD to still contribute and still be good at those ages, but the window is short. it's not like it happens every day for these guards too, or for these centers to be that good going into 35, 36 years old. So we're talking about next year that's already truncated by Kyrie's shortened season. And you've got the season after that, they're 34, 35 already. And they deal with injuries too. Like that's hoping that they stay healthy through all this. So the window is very short. It is for the Mavs. I still think the team will be good, but when will we see them and for how long? Then you look at the Mavs' current future, like what the future of the Mavericks looks like right now. Because we got the window of the right now, and then the future, which Nico Harrison says is like 4 or 5 years from now, and he doesn't care about it, I guess. His trades have proven that. The Mavs have their own pick this year. It's going to be top 12. Most likely be 11, but it could be a top 12 pick. It could be a top 4. 8% chance. It's like an 8.5% chance it's in the top 4 somewhere. We'll talk about what number 2 would look like tomorrow, what number 3 and 4 would look like the day after that. Isaac will have you on those. But they've got that pick for the future. They've got their own pick next year, 2026, actually. So if the Mavs do end up bottoming out next year, they could do a tank thing and end up being at the top there. And a lot of people think that 2026 draft is going to be very good. Got Lively, who's 21 years old right now. Still young. Injury prone, yes. I don't know that he's a player you build your team around, but I think he's a very good building piece that you could have for a long time. And then Max Christie is 22. And other than that, you've got a lot of players that are ready to win right now, that are in their prime right now. You've got 2 old players in AD and Kyrie. You've got basically 2-3 young players in Lively, Max Christie, and the draft pick. And you've got all these guys in the middle that are ready to go right now. Your current future is okay, not great. It's not like they're the Bucks or the Suns right now. It's not like we're looking at these teams and going, they have no picks. They have no young players. They have nothing to build around. They've got some stuff here. But if Kyrie signs 3 years, and if Kyrie returns to form, and if the AD and Kyrie are ever healthy for a postseason, if they're at the same time, if at the same time all those things happen, then you could look at it. But all of a sudden, the Mavs get Cooper Flagg, they get the number 1 pick. The timeline completely changes. Everything changes. Literally everything about what I just said changes overnight. All of a sudden, you have this win now group of AD and Kyrie. Cooper Flagg can help them. He doesn't need to be the number 1. He could be the number 2, 3 option on offense and won't have to be guarding the best player on the other team on defense necessarily. He can be anything that they want him to be and anything that he wants to be or can be, is capable of being. You're not relying on that guy to, all right, you've got to get us 20 a game and you've got to defend the best player on the other team. You've got to have that kind of, fringe all-star level impact as a rookie. They don't need that. They need some things. And I think he could bring some of those things. We'll talk about those here in a minute. But all of a sudden he makes the win now even better, right? Because who would you have got at 11? They're not going to be better than what Cooper Flagg can bring you in the first year. Then all of a sudden you look at the future and you start to go, all right, we've got Cooper Flagg playing next to Lively, playing, and you got Max Christie too. Hopefully he turns into something. And then you have the 2026 pick as well. Now your future looks completely different. And all of a sudden you start to maybe say, all right, we've recovered, right? All of a sudden we've recovered from losing Luka, from changing from a 10-year window to a 2.5-year window. We've recovered with 1 bounce of a ping pong ball. I think it's like 4 ping pong balls. I think they have to be 4 like in order. So maybe it's the bounce of 4 ping pong balls. Right? Did they change that? But all of a sudden your win now and your future look better in both ways. And I think for this season coming up, 2025, 26, it buys Kyrie some time because you would have another scorer. Cooper Flagg is very good. He brings a lot. He would bring a lot to this team. And it buys Kyrie some time because now you have, all right, we've got to figure out this front court. We've got Cooper Flagg now, can be another scorer, can be another playmaker. Our defense is going to be otherworldly with all these guys. And it buys Kyrie some time to be like, all right, now it's not. Our season depends on Kyrie coming back. The ceiling could depend on Kyrie coming back at that point. But I think you feel a lot better about your floor if you have Cooper Flagg with this current lineup than if you have a rookie that Jason Kidd may or may not play. And I think that's something that is just interesting. Cooper Flagg legitimately changes everything. The window, the future, all the current, everything. It would change all of it. I'm going to tell you why he changes all of that coming up. Today's Locked On Mavs. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. You can do all kinds of stuff. Same game parlays, player props, performance trends. Check it out at FanDuel. I'm doing this a couple of days before you're actually hearing this, but let's look at what the finals odds are. Well, let's look at some. Can we look at they have future and let's look at WNBA because I got the Wings. I got Paige Beckers. Just played her first preseason game the other day. The championship odds, the Wings are actually not at the bottom. Plus 5,500 to win the championship. Higher than the Sky, the Mystics, the Sun, or the new team, the Golden State Valkyries. The Sky plus 6,000. Mystics plus 30,000. So your Wings, your Dallas Wings, not terrible odds to win the championship there in the WNBA. All kinds of other stuff with FanDuel. Again, if you put down $5 and your bet wins, you win $200 in bonus bets. Check it out at FanDuel.com. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of what we call the Raccoon Squad. That's our listeners. Anybody who listens to this show daily, you're part of the Raccoon Squad, and we welcome you. You're part of the squad. Text us at 214-643-8637, and you can get text from us. We'll talk back. We'll have all kinds of stuff. We'll send you draft profiles. I'll send you this first one. Let me send you this first Cooper Flagg draft profile. And you'll see all the work that we put into them and see our notes on them and all that kind of stuff. So subscribe to that text line, help support the show and all that. Cooper Flagg, if the Mavs at the 1.8% chance, if somehow the conspiracy works out and the Dallas Mavericks all of a sudden get that number one pick in payback for sending Luka to the Lakers, if you believe in that conspiracy, that the NBA said we've got to get a star in LA. Somebody playing with LeBron would even compound it even more. Let's get somebody. Who could we get and which fan base could we screw over so that the NBA ratings can go up? And if you thought that, then they're like, all right, we'll screw them over for a little bit. Then we'll pay them back giving them Cooper Flagg. If that plays out, and I don't know if that would be the reason or not, but if that plays out, what is Cooper Flagg? Cooper Flagg, we've done this before. I'm going to do it again. We'll do it again if the Mavs get the number one pick. He's a 6'9", wing, power forward, point forward, whatever you want to call him. 205 pounds, 7'1" wingspan. He'll be 18 and a half at the time of the draft. He's very young. He reclassified in high school, and so he went to school. He went to Duke a little bit early and played that year in college. Obviously played in the national championship game. And I went through a bunch of different people's stuff on this draft evaluation. A lot of Rafael Barlow, Locked On NBA Big Board. Great stuff over there on that. He's one of the smartest we have. I obviously used ESPN. I've used some others as well. The Ringers draft guide is great every year. The Athletic, Sam Vecini does great stuff. So I compile all this kind of stuff and bring it together. And then Cooper Flagg. At 6'9", Flagg brings a combination of skill, versatility, and explosive athleticism that fills arenas. He can handle the ball and operate out of the high post, where he's a gifted playmaker, showcasing a knack for finding open cutters and easy scoring opportunities. That's him on offense. He can do all kinds of things. You can put the ball in his hands. He can play off of Anthony Davis. He can play off of a center. He can play off of a guard. He can, you can run a pick and roll with him where he's the roller and he gets a dunk. He can run a pick and roll with a center or whoever. He just does so many things at 6'9" and that size that is just different. For him, here's the story on Cooper Flagg. You ready for this? Gatorade National Player of the Year, Naismith Player of the Year, McDonald's All-American as a senior, led Montverde to a 33-0 record national championship title at the Chipotle High School Nationals, and went to the championship game in college his first year. Like, the guy wins everywhere he goes. He's just changed everything. Coming out of Maine, and man, he just is just on a different level. He's a bona fide, definite number one pick. I've had some people ask me, if the Mavs did get number one, is Cooper Flagg the guy? Yeah, he's the guy. They wouldn't think about anybody else. Like, that would be the easiest scouting day, or the easiest scouting session for the Mavs ever. It's like, all right, who do we pick here at number one? The Mavs have gotten the number one pick before, by the way. It was Mark Aguirre they picked a long time ago. Strengths from Rafael Barlow and others. On the defensive end is where Flagg is special. So I just talked about what Flagg is on offense, but on defense is where he's very special. Raphael said he's the most dominant high school defender I've ever scouted and epitomizes the term game changer. You think about the Mavs right now, we're already excited about their defense when they're healthy and they're playing together and they understand the defense and they get some time together and all that. A lively AD, not sure what we're going to do with PJ here. We'll talk about that in a minute. Cooper Flagg, insert whatever guards you want. Cooper Flagg, AD, and Lively. Who is getting to the rim against those guys? Who is driving against those guys? If you've got AD and Cooper Flagg playing the gaps off of players. If you play a non-shooter against the Mavericks with Cooper Flagg, AD, and Lively, and the Mavs are able to throw one of those guys on one of those non-shooters and they can just roam around, you're not doing anything against the Mavericks. It's a lockdown situation. So I think that is, it's wild that we're talking about all this about his offense, what he could bring. And then all of a sudden, Raphael's like, on the defensive end is where he's special. It's like, oh, sick. He's an elite rim protector. He can play make. He can handle the ball. Explosive athlete. He's got a nose for the ball. Raphael also says what really sets Flagg apart from his peers is his motor and relentless energy. Talk about a team that could use that. This Mavericks team right now, they missed Lively's motor. They missed his energy. Obviously, I think they missed at the end of the season Luka's energy that he brings making special plays. I think they missed Derrick Jones Jr.'s energy running around. They missed Josh Green's energy. When he comes in, it was just, oh my gosh, this pop of energy and athleticism. It infuses this roster with energy and athleticism, relentless motor if the Mavs can get Cooper Flagg. And imagine if he comes into a system like the Mavs where he doesn't have to be the number one guy all the time with the ball in his hands every single minute, or he doesn't have to defend the number one guy on the other team every single game. He can float around. He can use that motor to take chances and to do crazy things and to get out in transition. And he doesn't have to use all his energy isolating every single play over and over again, that he can run out in transition and be the guy. All right, Lively and AD are getting a rebound. Cooper Flagg's already down at the other end. Throw him the ball. Weaknesses, there's not a ton of weaknesses in his game that people have talked about, but one of the things is he's showing growth as a shot creator off the bounce. So I think if he does go to one of these places, like if he goes to Washington or if he goes to Utah and he's got to create his own shot in some way, or Brooklyn, if he goes to one of those places and he's got to create his own shot, and they're going to say, all right, you can take 18 shots a game, but you got to create 15 of them yourself. He's going to struggle a little bit there. And he's just going from one level to another. And so I think that's going to maybe hurt him even more. But he brings so much. He brings so much to an NBA team. He's the number one pick for a reason. And I think you start to look at everything that he's done in college and high school and all that, and you go, all right, well, man, this is a different level. This is a different level of a player. And what he would bring to Dallas is he would bring all those things that I just mentioned. He would change their defense. The Mavs defense would become even better than what we expected to be. The Mavs defense, honestly, would become so good that I wouldn't worry about the offense as much, honestly. But then he also brings playmaking at that level. The Mavs have needed some playmaking. They've needed an extra creator in some way, and maybe Cooper Flagg becomes that. Maybe he's that good at that spot that the Mavs just all of a sudden become a different team than other NBA teams, where it's not just a guard handling all the time. Maybe it's these forwards, this AD, and play through AD, play through Cooper Flagg, and you just have these shooters and Max Christie and Klay Thompson, and hopefully Caleb Martin gets his shot back, and you start playing through these. All of a sudden, you got these floaters in these shooters. Maybe the Mavs add somebody else, and you've got a center and Lively that can you can roll and can do rebound and all that. And you've got these two playmakers, and AD and Cooper Flagg, that can just do a bunch of different things. And maybe that's what the Mavs become. And so what he brings to Dallas is he changes their windows, and all of a sudden he elevates each of the things that the Mavericks can do on each end. As a shooter, he shot 38% from three on 3 threes a game in college. He can shoot. And so you're not losing shooting there. Maybe what you would have to figure out how to get some more shooting on the team. But I just think that you start throwing all these things together and you go, man, he would bring an awful lot to this Mavericks team. It would change a ton for the Mavs. Coming up, what changes need to be made to the roster? What if the Mavs get the number one pick? What happens to the Mavericks? What would they need to change or add or anything like that? We'll talk about that and more coming up. I have to give my co-host a treat. All right, let's talk about what actually happened if the Mavs get the number one pick. So you have Anthony Davis, Cooper Flagg, and the centers. That becomes the best defense in the NBA to me. All of a sudden, he can be your point of attack defend guy. He can be another rim protector, and maybe all of a sudden you are like, okay, we the Mavericks can make some changes and trade some things here. You look at the roster and what it would look like. Flagg starts right away. I think that there would be no question about that. It's a number one pick. It's a high, visibility pick. Like everybody knows him because he just played the national championship game. His name has been going around. Like casual basketball fans would know him. If the Mavs get the number one pick, it would be just like the Wings, honestly, where a bunch of people that in your life that you're like, I didn't know you cared about the Mavs. I didn't know you cared about the Wings. Came up to you, like, oh, what about this Paige Beckers? They would say, what about this Cooper Flagg? They would recognize you as the Mavs fan in their life, that you are a huge Mavs fan. And if you're listening to the show right now at this point of the season in early May, when the Mavs aren't playing, you are a huge Mavs fan. They would look at you and say, oh, well, what about this Cooper Flagg guy, man? How does this change everything? So you'd start, when Kyrie eventually comes back, and if he signs, again, the Thunderbolts asterisk is going to go on this every time we talk about him until he signs. And that's not going to happen until like July. 2 months more of this. Kyrie, Klay, Cooper Flagg starts at 3, then AD and Lively. I think that's what you go with. And then all of a sudden now you have these two shooters and Kyrie and Klay playing off of AD and Cooper Flagg. Got Lively as the roller. And obviously you can play up. You can throw PJ into the lineup or throw Najee into the lineup or Christie into the lineup. And you can play up or even Caleb Martin, where AD and Flagg are the 5 and the 4. They're the two forwards, and you've got more wings. You could play Cooper Flagg at the 5 if you want. 6'9", incredible rim protector, the motor, everything that I just mentioned about him, the reasons why he's going to be great. You can play him at the 5 against some lineups. Like there's times when Marvin Bagley was playing 5 for the Grizzlies, or even Jaren Jackson. I'd be okay with starting Cooper Flagg against him. You're not just going to be overwhelmed by size in that case. It may be a skill thing we'll talk about, but you wouldn't be overwhelmed with size if you start Cooper Flagg at the 5. Or not start him, but if you play Cooper Flagg at the 5 in some lineups when AD sits. Or if AD's not playing because he's out or whatever. So all of a sudden it changes a lot. But then changes to the roster. It then throws PJ to the backup spot. And that is not just a thing where you'd go, all right, well, does that disrespect PJ? You also now look at, all right, we have some redundancy in a Flagg, AD, PJ, Lively, Gafford. You just like, we have so many minutes available now. We have so many minutes already taken up on. You have so many minutes that are already spoken for. That's what I was looking for. Spoken for at the 4 and the 5 that now PJ becomes a redundancy, and I think he becomes a trade piece. Or Najee and PJ becomes a 3 and he backs up Flagg and AD. And you're like, okay, we're just going to play PJ as our backup forward for he's one of the first guys off the bench, him and Gafford. But I think then he becomes a trade piece that you can use to get a guard because they'd need a guard, man. The Mavs right now have a glut of bigs and wings and have no guards. Kyrie's not even on the roster yet, but you have Kyrie, Brandon Williams, kind of Max Christie, kind of Hardy, kind of Klay. But they're more, I think Christie and Klay are more wings. Hardy is more of an off-ball guard. Like you need on-ball guards so badly with Kyrie out. And even with Kyrie back, you need another one. They would need that even more. So can you trade PJ for one of the names that we've talked about before? I brought these names up a bunch, but could you trade him for a who are these guys? Could you trade him for a Reeves? Could you trade him for a Kobe White? Could you make one of those moves? A Malik Monk, a Colin Sexton, and Andrew Nembhard. Is that something that you could do where one of these teams wants to get bigger, wants to have another wing. Every team in the NBA would want a PJ Washington. And could you do that to bring in something that you desperately need? Would you have to trade PJ? I don't think so. I think you could roll with it and then just say, like, all right, we're just going to have insane size anytime somebody plays. And maybe they don't want Cooper Flagg to play 34 minutes a game to start. Maybe he plays 28 or something like that. Let's just introduce him into the NBA. And maybe by the end of the season, you're like, all right, now we should trade PJ because he's absolutely great. Because Cooper Flagg is incredible. And PJ's not playing enough for us that we couldn't use those minutes in a different way. The Mavs, I think, need for shooting would double, in my opinion. Because Cooper Flagg can shoot 38% from three in college. He can shoot, but that doesn't mean that the AD, Flagg, Lively, like that starting lineup, that's not enough shooting in a starting lineup. They would need another great shooter. Klay next to him is awesome. Like that already puts you in a great spot. If Kyrie is healthy, then you're great. But you need another shooter. You probably need to turn Najee into a shooter because you've got some creation there with Cooper Flagg. So the thing that Najee brings is not as important because you have Flagg. And so I think maybe you turn Najee into a shooter at that point. You trade him in what I'm saying. Max Christie needs to be better as a shooter, and that becomes one of his main things. Caleb Martin's got to be better as a shooter anyway than he was last year, but his need to be able to shoot becomes much higher because you need spacing around a Flagg, AD, Lively, Gafford, whoever is playing at those spots. You need more shooting around them. And I think the Mavs need for creation. Right now, it's the number one need, right? As the roster is right now, without Cooper Flagg, if the Mavs didn't get him, on-ball creation is the number one thing that they need. They have to add somebody else. The Mavs' need for creation actually goes down a little if you get a Cooper Flagg because he can create a little for you. And so you don't need that. You're not as desperate to add somebody. That could help in some negotiations. We're like, all right, we're not as desperate to add a Malik Monk, but we'll take him off your hands if you just want to take X, Y, Z, a Najee and Hardy. You know what I mean? So it changes what the Mavs need. They would need more shooting in a big way. Their need for creation goes down just a little. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Isaac will be with you tomorrow. What if the Mavs get number 2? And what if the Mavs get number 3 and 4? He'll do those shows the next couple of days. So go check that out, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. We have all kinds of great stuff. Again, the text line to get us is 214-643-8637. It's in the link in the description. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.